Hey, we're here in Big Daddy Unlimited Studios, and I got a very special guest here today. By the way, I'm John Martin of John Martin Talks. Y'all know me from that, but we've got Jared of Guns and Gadgets. He's from up in Massachusetts. Believe it or not, there's a place more liberal than Gainesville, Florida, probably up there around Boston. And he's a conservative, not only that, but he is a police officer. And when it comes to the Second Amendment, you'll find he's second to none. Jared, introduce yourself a little bit, and then I got a few questions for you.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Yep, my name is Jared. I run Guns and Gadgets on YouTube. I have been a police officer for over 23 years now. Started my career in New Orleans, Louisiana, and then moved back home in Massachusetts. Have always been a big fan of the Constitution and what it's supposed to mean to be an American, and focus more on the Second Amendment because I believe the Second Amendment backs up all the other amendments, and it is the biggest amendment that the anti-gun and anti-American agenda wants to eliminate. So I just try to educate people about that as much as possible, and I try to give people the news no matter where it's happening in different states, because the more we know, the better off we'll be, and we can all row the boat in the same direction.
Well, anti-American is exactly what it is. And you just mentioned that you kind of got your start in the Big Easy, as we sometimes call it down here. And, you know, I was talking about this on my show the other day when they were talking about suing the NRA. And I've never actually been a member of the NRA, not for any particular reason. It's just that down here in the South, in the rural South in Florida where I grew up, guns were just a natural thing. We didn't really think about it as a right. It was just kind of a way of life. I'm not sure how the average person thinks about it in Massachusetts, but down here, one of the challenges we have with the Second Amendment is to getting people focused on the fact that it's something that could actually be taken away from you. Because like when I grew up in my high school, you know, if it was hunting season, the guys had a shotgun in their gun rack right at school. And because they hunted in the morning, hunted in the afternoon. So my first connection to the NRA was actually a gun safety course, because Florida law changed, and we had to take the course. And I remember all the guys, and I was probably about 13, and we're all like, you know, why are we even here? Because we could probably teach the course. But talk about how, you know, maybe your experience in New Orleans, or maybe really around the country, how we seem to take for granted our Second Amendment rights. Like I say, especially here in the South, it's like a way of life. So it's kind of hard for us to think about it something that could actually be taken from us.
Right, absolutely. Well, I try to look at our rights in general as tools, and our Constitution is our toolbox. I like to have as many tools as possible at any given time. I might not utilize every tool every single day. Like, let's say the Second Amendment, there are people out there that are watching that might not be gun people. They might not think, what do I care if that rifle gets banned because it's scary looking. But as we've seen what's happened in the last couple months in the country, more and more people are realizing, you know what, that's my right to defend myself, and I'm going to start doing that. And we're getting to a point where, like you said, they're taking away our options because so many people are turning a deaf ear to it, that it's when they decide to join our side and come over to the Second Amendment and realize how valuable it is, a lot of their options are gone. And the first thing that they say is this isn't right. But they've been voting for that all along. Or they've just been not voting all along. So it's absolutely something that there is a concerted effort to take away from our country. I believe because an armed populace is very difficult to command. That's my personal belief. And if we're less and less and less able or capable of defending ourselves, then the people who want control have an easier way in. And I've seen it throughout the country. Massachusetts, you're shamed for liking things that are written into the Constitution. You're shamed for liking lawful items. And more states are falling. Look what happened in Virginia last year. We had one of the most pro-gun states in the Union, now is one of the most anti-gun states, law-wise, in the nation. And it can happen like that overnight.
Well, that's one of the things I'm scared of here in Florida. I'm sure people like in Texas are scared of as well, because we get a lot of people from New York moving down here, and what I've been reading, it's going to happen even more when you consider what's been happening up there. And I tell them, hey, come on down. We got plenty of room for you, but please leave your politics at the state line.
Right.
Don't bring the things you're running from. And I think the Second Amendment is one of those things, because people think Florida is a big Second Amendment state, and it is, but it is being diluted. Absolutely. Here. Even people that I've supported over the years are backing away from our fundamental rights, the Second Amendment, because without the Second Amendment, what good are the rest of them, because you can't defend them?
Absolutely.
So I'm seeing it, even in Florida, support on the political side being diluted, and I'm wondering if that's something you're seeing happening across the country.
Without a doubt, and it's always the states where people say it'll never happen here. One of the biggest examples outside of Florida I like to use is New Hampshire. Live free or die. It's been constitutional carry. They've never had any problems with it. However,
doesn't get much more straightforward than that. Live free or die.
Exactly.
Right?
But because people have turned a deaf ear or a blind eye to what's going on and how people are voting, the anti-gun Democrats have taken a stronghold in both chambers of the legislature in New Hampshire, and now they're realizing with all these, just the last 2 weeks alone, they had 2 red flag bills brought before the governor. And if that can happen in New Hampshire, it absolutely can happen in Texas and Arizona and you name state here.
Well, you're onto something there, because one of the things I've noticed, and I say on my show all the time, that progressives can never be negotiated with. They can't be reasoned with. They can only be defeated at the ballot box, because they never stop. One of the problems with, if you want to call it our side, people who are conservative, is we will rest on our laurels.
Absolutely.
We'll get back to our lives, because, you know, if we want to go hunting, for instance, well, we've got our guns, so we're going hunting, so we're not worried about the Second Amendment, those kind of things. And the left never ever stops.
Absolutely.
And they're never going to stop. So how do you get people who aren't used to never stopping, so to speak, to realize that they've got to be all in or it's all over?
I think the big thing is just having a conversation with people. You know, that arc that's died in this nation, actually having a conversation with 2 people who might not agree to everything and realize that you're still a good person at the end of the day, and so am I. We have to start educating people, and the more that we can get people to open their eyes to what happens, and the big picture is that this is the United States of America. You know, we're not any other nation. This is the freest place in the world for a reason. And if we don't maintain the avenues which got us that freedom and maintain that freedom, the freedom will go.
Well, it's kind of like what Thomas Jefferson said: if you want to be both ignorant and free, you want what never was and never will be.
Absolutely.
And like Benjamin Franklin said, gave us a republic if we can keep it. Yep. And we saw, like, one of the things that really troubles me is we saw what happened just a month or so ago in St. Louis with the McCloskeys, which I believe is going to be a turning point, really, because I think at the very heart, and it's not just America, at the very heart of being a human being is the right to self-preservation.
Absolutely.
The right to protect your cave, your hearth and home, your family. And we saw out there, and I'd like to get your perspective as a police officer, because the McCloskeys, from what I can see, did everything right. They called the police. They said we're being basically invaded by a mob. The police didn't come, right. But then a couple of weeks later, they actually did come, but not to defend the McCloskeys, but to take the very things they were using to protect themselves, their guns, away from them. When you saw all of that, how did it make you feel, not only as a person who is so passionate about the Second Amendment, but as a police officer? How would you feel going and having to take those people's guns away?
Well, personally, I wouldn't, because a job is a job. My beliefs are my beliefs. I wouldn't have done that, but to each their own. But I believe that what happened with the McCloskeys is infuriating, because yes, they're a couple who were anti-gun, and they realized that this amendment actually saved their life. That's what it was for, and they did everything to a letter, to the T, to the letter of the law, including the Castle Doctrine in their state, which says they can do exactly what they did. And they're facing somebody who's well funded by George Soros and who wants nothing other than to squash the Second Amendment. That's what she was put into her position to do. The circuit attorney in St. Louis refused to prosecute people who were burning down businesses, to people who were inciting violence in riots, and she chose to charge and go after people who elected to protect themselves from a mob. And that mob, if you watch the videos, they're all over. I mean, they were live streaming. There were people saying, "We're going to kill you. We're going to burn your house down. We're going to kill your dog." I mean, I don't know about you.
Kill your dog, man.
I don't know about you, but they should be applauded for actually not pulling the trigger.
Yeah, absolutely. I was amazed at that. And he really wasn't pointing them at them. He was just basically saying enough is enough. But, one of the things I say all the time is progressives will always take it to the extreme. If you give them an inch, they will take a mile. Like I say, for instance, you mentioned Virginia, where and I know abortion and all is a really touchy subject, but I think it's an excellent example where it used to be under the Clintons we got this idea it was safe, legal, and rare, and most people were like, oh, maybe I can get my mind around that. But then you fast forward to Virginia, and now we're going to have a conversation, as Rush Limbaugh says, about the fourth trimester. So when it comes to the Second Amendment, I think one of the things we're seeing extreme. We talked about the McCloskeys, but then you fast forward to just this past weekend in Chicago, and just yesterday actually, where you had a one of the head of Black Lives Matter actually in front of a police precinct in Chicago saying that they had a right, basically almost like a God-given right, to actually loot and pillage these stores because of reparations in this thing, and no one is saying anything. I mean, this person is literally inciting a riot. So they're telling you not only can you not defend your home, but by God, we have a right to take your stuff from your business, your hard work, American dream. I mean, so progressives just take everything to the extreme. So if we don't do it, what do you see? I'm assuming you may agree with me. If you don't, please tell me. But what do you see if Joe Biden and these progressives, these anti-gun people, get their way? He's already said that Beto O'Rourke's his guy, right. And Beto said, hell yes, I'm coming for your guns, So if we lose Donald Trump, we lose the Senate, we lose the House, where do you see the Second Amendment going?
Well, first, there's a saying that whatever you tolerate, you get more of. And if we don't wake up and stop the rioting, it's going to get worse because we're tolerating it. But if Joe, I call him Sniffy.
Sniffy.
If Sniffy wins,
I call him Empty Shell Joe right now. But we all got to get everything. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's okay. If he wins, he's already said his agenda is to ban assault weapons again, institute astronomical amounts of taxes on firearms and ammunition, universal background checks, which does nothing other than stop the person-to-person transaction and create a registry. All the things that we don't want to happen will absolutely happen if he is elected as president and has the power of the House and the Senate. And like you said earlier, how we like to rest on our laurels. For 2 years, once the current President Trump won, we had the Senate and the House as far as Republican strength. And we rested on our laurels. And we could have had a lot of things happen pro-gun, pro-America in those 2 years, but we didn't because we were happy because we didn't get Hillary. And that has hurt us today because we don't have that ability to make sure things get through now. So now we fight the stalemate, and if they get the corner office and Bloomberg can win what he's been doing in Virginia, in Texas, and in Arizona, and in Florida, they're going to flip the House, and they're going to flip the Senate. The House they already have. The Senate, it's 3 people they have to flip, and they're not going to be able to be stopped with the votes.
And what amazes me, if you look at some of the polling data that's come out, and with guns specifically, the sales are going through the roof. Right. And like I saw an article just the other day that like 40% of all the gun sales in this last quarter were for first-time buyers.
Right.
And the gun sales for African Americans are going through the roof. Right. So all of this, and at the same time, though, a lot of them appear to be lined up to apparently vote for Joe Biden, which makes no sense to me, because you're voting to take away the very thing that you're going after. It's like you're voting against your own self-interest. So what would you say to people who are new gun owners, or people who are thinking about becoming one? Obviously training is very important, but tuning into Guns and Gadgets would be one of the best things they could do. But what would you say to people who are first-time buyers, or who are thinking they need to re-up on guns and ammunition, besides going to Big Daddy Unlimited, by the way, which is probably the best thing they could do to buy them? But what would you say to those people about the need to be involved politically, because they're making a statement with their purchase, but they may be on the verge of voting to take away the very thing that they want to defend themselves?
Absolutely.
It's kind of a paradox to me.
It's imperative that people, thank you first off for joining the truth side, right? Joining the group that wants to protect you. If you have joined our group, the Second Amendment community, you absolutely have to have, I call it the man in the mirror test, or the woman in the mirror test. You have to sit down and be able to look yourself in the eye and say, all right, I have made the decision that my life is valuable enough for me to defend it on my own and not wait for somebody else to come minutes later. If you've made that decision, you've realized that your wife, your kids, your neighbors are that important to you, then you have to stop voting for the people and the bills that are looking to take that item away. You can't have it both ways. Yes, today you might have it, but I guarantee you in November, if they win, you're going to lose it. And then you're going to be like the rest of us who have been saying for years, you got to stop voting for this stuff. And a lot of that is just talking to people. Many people that are new to the community don't know what we know because we've been on this side for decades. So it's up to us to impart our knowledge and impart our training and our education and our experiences so that they can see the big picture. Because without us old dogs teaching these new dogs what we know, we're doing them a disservice. And without that happening, they're going to continue that, I got to vote this D. I got to vote whoever it is that has a D, I have to vote for that. And that's got us to where we are today.
Yeah, one of the things I say at the top of my show on John Martin Talks is I'm battling ignorance and apathy daily. You know, that's one of the things. And my dad was an old-time political figure, God rest his soul, and he used to say, it's kind of the same thing you just said, because one of the things he would say is we get the government we deserve, but the thing we need to do is, you know, Donald Trump's going to do his part. He's working hard. I don't have any fear about it. He's the hardest worker I've ever seen running for president. But I tell people they gotta campaign, and the Second Amendment people follow right into this, which really just American people. They've got to campaign like he's 2 votes behind.
Absolutely. And
the next 2 people they see are the ones that are going to put them over the top. You got to be that guy, that gal, if you will, that person that people come to. Because like in my little hometown, people call me up and ask me, hey, I haven't been paying much attention. Who should I vote for? Right. You got to become that person. Right. Or if you know someone who's like that, you got to reach out to them. Because Jefferson's right. We can't be both ignorant and free. And one of the things I'm really concerned about is if we don't man what I call the political ramparts, we're going to have to man the real ones again.
Right.
And that it would be a real crying shame because people have already paid that price. Mm-hmm. We don't have to do that. But if we don't wake up,
absolutely,
if we don't pay attention to what you're saying on your show and my show, then I'm very fearful we'll have to man the real ones again.
Absolutely, and that's one of the reasons I do what I do on my channel is because you here in Florida, you might not realize what Bloomberg's doing in Wisconsin or what he just did in New Jersey. And the more that is brought out to light, then the better off we'll be because what he did in Virginia worked. And he's already kicked in money to do it in 5 other states. But if we don't know that and we don't drive people in those areas to vote, to say, look, if you think what happened in Virginia is a bad thing, well, he's coming for you next. And he's already, like in Texas, he has 300,000 people on the streets already working to stop anything related to pro-gun activity. And he's got the money to do it. I mean, if I had the billions he did, I'd be doing it on the pro-gun side. But we absolutely have to educate people. It's imperative for not only us to maintain what we have and what we love, including our freedom, but look at the future generations. And we have kids that won't live as free as you and I have. And that's a shame. Well,
Reagan said that pretty well. He basically told us that it's not in the bloodstream, that we got to impart freedom to our next generation. If we don't, then we're not living up to our end of the bargain. And you're absolutely right about the fact that we've got to be vigilant. We've got to stand up for our rights. One of the things I say, and when I first met you, I could tell you were in the same category as me. Not everybody can be a fighter.
Right.
Not everybody can be one. We're fighters. You're fighters with Guns and Gadgets. I'm fighter with John Martin Talks. But what I tell people, if you can't be a fighter, because like Bloomberg's got his billions. Right. He may have gone away, but his money's still there. You can support people that are in the fight.
Absolutely.
They can support shows like yours. They can support shows like mine. They can go to, I know you have an affiliation with Big Daddy Unlimited like I do. They can go to our sponsorship links. If they can't get on the front line, they can support people who are on the front line, because people in the back that support fighters are just as vital as the fighters themselves, because we can't get this voice out if they don't help us. So I encourage people to go to Big Daddy Unlimited, check out your link, check out my link, check out our show. like what we're doing, share it with other people, because we've got to support people in the fight.
Absolutely, I agree 100%, because any leader throughout history is only as strong as their followers. So if you can't be somebody who's an advocate, then figure out what you're good at, know your role, and just accelerate at that.
And talking about supporting fighters, I wanted to say something to you. I talked about off the air this with you a little bit. One of the things I've always done is I've realized that people in the military, for instance, that they are the reasons why we have the freedoms we have. So I've always thanked military people, and I've always been concerned since we got a volunteer military, not knock on them. I mean, they're terrific. But what if we become a country that is not worth defending? And the same thing now I see with police officers. You know, what if because it's public service, let's face it, I think the average starting salary for a police officer in the United States is around $32,000. Yep. So you're obviously not doing it for the money, that kind of thing. You're doing it as a sense of duty and public service. So my big fear, and it's one of the reasons why I go up to people, and I want to thank you publicly, like I said privately, I really appreciate your service. And if you're out there, you really need to thank police officers, you know, thank them for their service. But what if, my fear is, what if we become a country that is not worth serving, and we don't have people like you standing up for us where we're going to be? I can tell you we're going to need to arm up even more if that actually happens. But thank you for your service, and tell me a little bit about, as a police officer, what are you feeling right now when you see what is happening around the country?
Well, first off, thank you. I appreciate your words, your kind words. It means a lot because you don't hear it a lot, so thank you. I don't know, heart-to-heart moment. It's tough when, so like myself, I've been in the business for 23 years. It's tough when you see things that you have shed blood for. And for me personally, it's my rights, the Constitution of the United States. I fight for it every single day. And to see the people who are supposed to be elected officials or representatives work for us turn their backs on us when we're simply trying to make sure that they have the freedom to do their job, we have the freedom to do what we want. It's a bitter pill to swallow. It's a difficult time. There are a lot of people, men and women alike, who are walking off the job at rates we've never seen before, at a time when, based off of the current climate of the country, we've been having some serious issues with recruitment. So you have some agencies who are short a couple hundred people, and then 600 people walk off the job. That does a lot. And what it does is it makes that community less safe and more susceptible to what's going on right now, which is what they want, they being those people who don't want us to be free. So we have to band together. We have to realize that our forefathers knew what they were doing, and we have to value our rights, every single one of them, you know, and fight for it. Because if we don't fight for it, we are going to lose it. There is no if, we will lose it.
Yep, it's not, freedom is not free. It never has been. And you know, I think about it, you know, when I look at what you're doing, both with your guns and gadgets, which you do out of the goodness of your heart, and obviously we need to support fighters, like I said, but I think about, you know, that point when you look at like your family, and do you get to a point where you ask your question, is it actually worth it? You know, and that kind of thing. And if we get to that point where it's not worth it anymore, then we're done. Mm-hmm. We're done as a nation, and you know, they'll be coming for your guns and your dogs and your wives and your family like they did with the McCloskeys. So I can't say enough about how much I appreciate that, how concerned I am, but also getting to know you, how it does give joy to my heart that there are people who are still in the fight, which reminds me again, if you want to support fighters like Jared and myself, go to the link, Big Daddy Unlimited, check out the description of our shows. You'll see a link to Jared, you'll see a link to John Martin. Click on that. As Jared said, at 99 cents for your first time. I mean, it's basically free. And you can speak to this because, you know, being with guns and gadgets, I mean, the savings you can get on one single purchase would offset any particular cost, because you're getting a super deal through Big Daddy Unlimited. And talk about that just a moment, if you would.
Yeah, sure. First off, I can vouch for everybody watching right now. I can tell you that they have stock right now as we speak. So if you're looking for firearms, they have some. So join. I like to, before I tell people or try to advise people on what I think they should do to help better themselves, whether it's join a membership or whatever, I like to check it out myself first, because I can never be that person who doesn't believe in something and still say it's a good option. So what I did is I joined the site and I went and started looking around for firearms that I wanted to buy, and they were cheaper than everything around me up in Massachusetts. And some of the guns that I was looking at, sorry honey if she's watching, were a couple $100 cheaper. So they're going to save me a lot of money. And that savings on that one firearm that I'm going to be buying is 2 years of a membership for Big Daddy Unlimited. So it's a win-win scenario.
Yeah, you can go and say, honey, I saved so much on this one, I can get another one.
Yeah, I bought it on sale. Look what I did.
I'm under budget. Well, I appreciate talking with you today, and check out Jared's show, Guns and Gadgets. Check out John Martin Talks. We both have YouTube channels, that type of thing. He's got quite a few more followers than me, so check us out. And if you're watching us on any of the networks that my show is on, absolutely check out Jared of Guns and Gadgets. You cannot go wrong. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it.
All right.